Hi there everyone, my name is Andrei Marius. I've been working in Illustrator for over 10 years, and in this Envato Tuts Plus tutorial I'll put my experience to use as I show you step by step how you can create this 3D ice cream design using Adobe Illustrator. As always, before we begin, make sure to check out Envato Elements, where you can get unlimited downloads of stock videos, music, graphics, photos, fonts, and many more, all ready to use and with simple commercial licensing. You can subscribe right now with the link in the description. Let's create a new document. Select pixels from this drop-down menu, set the width and the height to 850 pixels. Make sure that the color mode is set to RGB and the resolution to 72 pixels per inch, and then you can create your new document. For the beginning, let's go to Window in the menu bar. First of all, make sure that the control panel is active, and then open all the panels that have this check mark. Once you're done, go to View and Show Grid to enable the grid. Go again to View, but this time select Snap to Grid, which will enable the Snap to Grid feature. And for this tutorial, you need a grid line every 5 pixels, so let's go to Edit, Preferences, Guides in Grid. Just enter 5 in this grid line every box. Click OK, and now if you press Ctrl and plus to zoom in a bit, you can notice that you have a grid line every 5 pixels. Now let's select the ellipse tool to create our first shape. Using a simple click, you can open this window where you can set the settings for the shape which you're about to create. You'll need a 180 pixel circle, so let's set these values. Click OK to create this circle. Select the stroke and remove the color. Select the fill and replace this color with 250, 145, and 180. Keep your shape selected and go to Effect, Distort and Transform and Roughen. Check these two boxes, increase the size to 10 and lower the detail to 3. Click OK to apply this effect, and don't worry if the end result doesn't look exactly like mine. The only thing that matters is that your shape is distorted. Let's continue with the pen tool. Use a simple click to add the starting point, then go 40 pixels to the right. Keep in mind that you can have a look inside the info panel to know exactly when you get to 40 pixels. Click again to add the second point. Then go 20 pixels up and 20 pixels to the right. This time click and drag to add these handles and move them 20 pixels up. Move up 40 pixels and then 30 pixels to the left. Click again to add a new point and then click and drag it to drag this handle 10 pixels down. Now move 30 pixels down and 30 pixels to the left. Again, click and drag these handles 10 pixels down. And finally, click the starting point to close your path. You can move away from this shape to add the starting point for a new one. Go 30 pixels to the right and 20 pixels down. Click and drag the handles of this new point 30 pixels to the right. Then move 40 pixels to the right and 40 pixels down. Click and drag the handles of this new point 20 pixels down, and then click this point, which as you can see removes the bottom handle of this point. Continue and add a new point 50 pixels to the left and 20 pixels up. Drag the handles 30 pixels to the left. Move 50 pixels to the left and 20 pixels up, and then drag the handles 20 pixels up. And as you close your path, remember to click and drag to add this tiny handle about 10 pixels. Now that you've got both of these shapes, first you need to adjust the colors. For this one, let's enter 255, 255, and 235. And for this other shape, you need to enter 255, 255, and 245. Select again this shape and place it on top of this other shape like this. Then select both of these shapes and place them on top of your pin shape, somewhat like this. Now you can select all of your shapes and press Ctrl plus or Ctrl minus to zoom in and out on your selection. And let's continue with the ellipse tool. Use again a simple click to create a 50 pixel circle. Press Ctrl and plus to zoom in on this new shape and replace the fill color with 255, 76, and 62. Then use the direct selection tool to select just this point and move it 5 pixels down. And then for this other point, let's move it 5 pixels up. Make sure that you're holding down the Alt key as you click and drag these two handles. Move up to the top anchor point and repeat the same technique. Continue with the arc tool. Use it to create a 35 by 55 pixels arc. Let's select just this path. Set the stroke weight to 3 pixels and then select the stroke so that you can replace this color with 143, 101, and 56. And then you'll need the width tool. Using a simple click and drag, you can increase the thickness of this stroke like this. Now select both of these shapes, rotate them 45 degrees to the left. Keep in mind that you can hold down the Shift key as you click and drag, which will constrain the rotation of your selection by 45 degrees. So let's keep it 45 degrees to the left. Now you need to move your cherry on top of these other shapes. Select all of your shapes and first of all press Ctrl and minus to zoom out, and then press Ctrl G, which will group all of your shapes. Now that you've got your group, we can apply a 3D effect. For this first example, we'll use an Inflate 3D effect, so click this button. Remember to check the ray tracing, lower the depth to 4.5 pixels, and keep the rest of the settings as they come. Continue with the Materials tab. We'll keep this default material, but lower the roughness to 0.2. Then move to the Lighting tab, where you need to lower the intensity to 65%. Increase the rotation to 150 degrees. Keep the height at 45 degrees and the softness at 40%. And increase the intensity to 150%. This will be your first 3D group. Let's continue and add some sprinkles on top of this ice cream using the Line Segment tool. Again, you can click on your artboard, set the length to 7 pixels and the angle to 0 degrees, and then click OK to create this tiny horizontal path. You can press Ctrl and plus to zoom in on it. Increase the stroke weight to 4 pixels. Replace the color with 233, 53, and 66. Don't forget to open the strobe flyout panel and check this round cap button. Now you need to disable the snap to grid for a few moments. Make sure that the selection tool is active and then hold down the Alt key as you click and drag, which will add copies of this horizontal line. You'll need 4 copies. Once you're done adding these copies, let's change their color. Starting with this one, let's make it yellow. For the blue one, use this color. For the green one, enter the color code 94, 182, and 145. And for the purple one, you need to enter the color code 110, 82, and 222. Now you need to multiply these color shapes and spread them across your ice cream until you end up with something that's somewhat similar with this. Once you're done adding these color paths, you need to select them all so that you can group them. One way to do it would be to select your entire design using the selection tool. Hold down the Shift key and click the existing group, which will remove it from your selection. And then you can press Ctrl G to group your tiny color paths. Now that you've got this new group, we need to add the same 3D effect that we used for the first one. This can be easily done using these target icons. All you have to do is hold down the Alt key, click this target icon that stands for your first group, and drag it on top of the target icon that stands for your new group. Once you release the mouse button, the 3D effect will be applied. Before we continue, let's also apply a solid drop shadow effect for this group. So select it, go to Effect, Stylize, and Drop Shadow. First of all, change the color to 187, 172, and 159. Set the blending mode to normal, lower the opacity to 50%, set the offset values to -0.5 and 0.5. Also lower the blur to 0.5. Click OK to apply this effect, and let's continue with the ice cream cone. For the beginning, you need to create a rectangular grid, so select the rectangular grid tool from your toolbar. You need to replace the stroke color with 214, 147, and 65. Select the fill and set it to 234, 167, and 87. Now you can click on your artboard to set the settings for the rectangular grid which you're about to create. Set the width and the height to 390 pixels. Increase the number of dividers to 25. Remember to check this box, and then you can click OK to create your grid. Keep it selected and move to the Symbols panel. Simply click this button and click OK to save your grid as a new symbol. Now that you've got your symbol, you can delete this design. And let's continue with the ice cream cone. Select the rectangle tool from your toolbar. Start with a 120 by 140 pixels rectangle. Select the stroke and remove the color. Continue with the direct selection tool and use it to select just these 2 points. Go to Object, Path and Average. Check this both box and click OK to turn your rectangle into a triangle. Now you have 2 overlapping points in this location, so select one of these points and remove it using this button. And then use the anchor point tool to add a bit of roundness for this remaining point. Just drag the handles 40 pixels to the left, like this. Let's drag this shape a bit lower. Reselect the rectangle tool from your toolbar. This time use it to create a 160 by 30 pixels rectangle. Let's move it in this exact position. Continue with the direct selection tool and select these 2 points. Set the corners radius to 15 pixels. Make sure that this shape is still selected, and let's go to Effect, Warp, and Arc Lower. You need to check the horizontal box and set the bend to 20%. Click OK to apply this effect, and then expand it by going to Object and Expand Appearance. Return to the rectangle tool one more time. Create a 180 by 25 pixels shape. Let's move it in this exact position. Switch to the direct selection tool so that you can set the corners radius to 10 pixels. Now use again the rectangle tool to create a shape which will cover the left half of these shapes. Once you're done, select all of these shapes. Grab the Shape Builder tool. Hold down the Alt key and simply click and drag across this area to remove the left half of your shapes. Press Ctrl and G to group the remaining shapes. And let's add a 3D effect. This time we'll use the Revolve one, so just click this button. Keep these settings as they come, but select the front rotation preset. Let's press Ctrl and minus to zoom out a bit so that we can place this cone in this exact position. Now you can select all of your groups and press Ctrl plus to zoom in on them. Reselect your cone and let's further adjust this 3D effect. First move to the lighting tab where you need to lower the intensity to 65%, increase the rotation to 150 degrees and the height to 60 degrees. Keep the softness at 40% and increase the intensity to 100%. Continue with the Materials tab. Again, lower the roughness to 0.2 and then switch to this Graphics tab where you will find your saved symbol. Simply click it to add it to your design. Check this invisible geometry box. You can always scale the symbol, but for this example, we'll keep it at 100%. And set the rotation to 45 degrees. Now let's press Ctrl and plus to zoom in on this group. Disable the Snap to Grid. You can also hide the grid. Select the pen tool from your toolbar. and use it to create a drip shape roughly like this. Once you're happy with the look of your drip shape, you need to move to the layers panel to apply the 3D effect which we used for the first group. Make sure that the fill is active and set the color to 250, 145 and 180. If your end result looks a bit pixelated like this, you can easily fix it by disabling and then turning back on the ray tracing. And now that we apply the 3D effect, let's also apply a drop shadow. So let's go to Effect, Stylize and Drop Shadow. Change this color to black and the blending mode to multiply. Keep the opacity at 50%. Set the offset settings to -5 and 5. Increase the blur to 5 pixels. Click OK to apply this effect. Let's press Ctrl and 0, and for the final touches, let's also add a background for this design. Select the rectangle tool from your toolbar. Create a new shape which would cover your entire artboard. Move to the Control panel, and after you make sure that the alignment is set to artboard, all you have to do is click these two buttons to easily move your selection to the center of the artboard. Next, you need to right-click it, go to Arrange and Send to Back. As you can see, this moved your shape behind the rest of the design. And now you need to fill it with a radial gradient using this button. Let's focus on the gradient sliders because obviously we need to replace these colors. Start with this one, simply select it, change the color mode to RGB and replace the color with 94, 182 and 145. And then continue with this other gradient slider. Again, change the color mode to RGB and set the color to 218, 254 and 186. Now let's select the gradient tool. Press Ctrl and minus to zoom out a bit, and let's stretch this gradient somewhat like this. Finally, move to the layers panel to select all the shapes that make up your ice cream. Press Ctrl G to group them. Make sure that the selection tool is active and center your new group. And then pick the ellipse tool to add a tiny shadow below your ice cream cone. You'll need a 50 by 20 pixels shape. Fill it with 54, 135 and 101. Move it roughly in this position. Lower the opacity to about 15%. And with this final touch, your design is complete. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Remember to hit that like button as it helps me know that I did a good job. Subscribe if you aren't already, and don't forget to click the little bell icon to be notified of any new tutorials. I'm Andrei Marius, and I'll see you in the next video.